after all these years.
They are all waiting because history is on the other side of that window. So there is reason for standing around, reason for living. You just have to peek through the glass and there it is. But there is also a deadline here.
So if you want to move up and speed it up, we're trying to speed it up inside, but it has to close at 12.
Let's crack the whip.
What time is it now?
Right now it's about 22.
12:40.
Do you have enough time to get all these people in?
Probably not, sir.
And notice that boy has moved a foot closer since the last time you saw him. But still, there is that eternal question with a footnote. Why do you want to see it?
Because I've never seen it before.
Because it's such a great event to have the Stanley Cup here.
It really is.
Yeah.
But there has to be a cutoff point. They're going to be taking the cups back east, so they have to go.
And when he did that, he shut off the only significant part of the world to a significant segment of that same world, leaving some who will keep a picture or two, or 3 or 4, or maybe more. How many pictures did you take of it?
22 on this roll and another 6 on another one.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
It means a lot. I played hockey a long time, eh? And it's really cool. You get this weird feeling in your chest, and it's, I don't know, man, it's beautiful to watch these guys.
His name is Doug, and he lost a leg somewhere in life, but he didn't lose his spirit for life. The cup reminded him of that.
Well, what about it, John McKeechee? Did you have time to go by and see the Stanley Cup?
No, I didn't, but I got time to watch the first 55 seconds of the hockey game, and I'll tell you this much. Hang on a second. Come here. No, come here. No, you're late. Where you been?
Where I been?
Yeah.
In traffic, been working.
Go. The good news is Pavel hasn't been kicked out yet. So hopefully we'll be able to show the whole game for you tonight in terms of highlights, and Pavel will be in the whole hockey game. And a little later, we've got a very interesting human interest story on Todd Ewan, a kid who played his junior in New West. And if you're not a hockey fan at all, we've got a great story for you on World Cup soccer, especially the money aspect of it and tickets and so on and so forth. But mainly, of course, is this, and we're just a minute into the hockey game. As I say, Pavel's still in it. And no, I didn't get a chance to see the Stanley Cup, but maybe it'll be here all summer when they do win it.
Oh, John, you're an optimist. That's great. Thanks. Still to come on the NewsHour, a government MP tries to force credit card interest rates down. And is Ottawa's latest argument over separatism driving Canadians to despair?
8%.
The paycheck would go to pay off the minimum payments on the credit cards, but then of course you'd have to go and take more money out on the credit cards so that you could keep living. And that just is a vicious circle that just doesn't seem to stop, and it was the credit cards that did it.
He had 12 credit cards. He says that's how he found himself $75,000 in debt.
So when you got to the point where you found out you owed $75,000, what did you do?
I had to claim bankruptcy. I had no other way out. I couldn't see any way of doing it other than to claim the bankruptcy. It was a sad thing to do, and I mean, I guess it kind of to this day even leaves a sore spot inside of me.
Glenn Allen lost his credit, and the credit card companies didn't get paid. Allen supports the idea of a law to limit high credit card rates, especially if it prevents anyone from losing it all, like he did.
A spate of good news for a change on the economy tonight. A report for the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development says Canada's economy is growing faster than even the government thought it would. In his February budget, Finance Minister Paul Martin predicted that economic growth of 3% for this year, but the OECD predicts growth of 3.9%, and it also predicts higher than expected growth next year. And as we mentioned earlier, the Bank of Canada rate was down again today thanks to a stronger Canadian dollar. Today's positive news is just the latest in a series of upbeat reports from the economic front. And according to a new public opinion poll, it may all be changing the attitudes of those supposedly morose members of Generation X. The poll asked 500 young adults aged 19 to 24 what they thought about the country's future and theirs. And the results were more than surprising. A whopping 92% of the respondents said they believe strongly that they have a bright future in Canada. 73% said that they would describe Canada as a land of opportunity. And while unemployed Gen Xers are legion, 95% told pollsters that although it may take some time, they believe they will find a job in the career of their choice. But while the economy may be giving the country's young adults a bit of a boost, that other national issue is doing its best to bring them back down again. Remember the last federal election campaign and how every political party, including the Bloc Québécois, said national unity would take a back seat to the economy? Well, surprise, surprise, all of those pledges seem to have fallen by the wayside. And today in the House of Commons, all parties furiously debated a Reform Party motion over national unity.
Mr. Speaker, this is just a partial list of the dissatisfactions of Reform supporters with status quo federalism.
It somehow no longer inspires confidence that these middle-aged men, with their quaint ceremonies and airless debates, can save the country.
A growing vacuum on the national unity issue, a leadership vacuum.
And yet outside Parliament Hill, young and old still make the pilgrimage here to the temple of Canadian democracy. And out here, the debate on Canada's future is vigorous and bright and full of contradictions.
I feel pretty positive about Canada. I think it's a really great country. Yeah. The UN has rated it one of the top countries of all the countries in the world.
Well, there's a lot of bad stuff happening, but I think we can stay together throughout it, no matter what.
What about you?
The only thing I'm worried about is the Quebec separatism. I mean, I think that's really bad, and if we can all stay as one, I think that will make the country a lot better.
That's what the kids say. But back inside, the grown-ups would have you open a vein.
Everything has been attempted, but it is, I would say, a disease of this country that we cannot move. This country has no power when it comes to change anything.
Sadly, the negativism of what happens inside is having an effect outside. Listen to this 24-year-old.
I used to be very positive. I've done a lot of work in Quebec, and I used to be very positive in the whole situation. And yes, we're going to survive this thing and conquer it. But to be honest with you, since Lucien Bouchard's come in and he's actually going to foreign places to discuss separation, that scares me.
Scares you, eh?
It does, it does.
We asked this group from St. Catharines, Ontario, this question.
Whoever feels really positive about Canada's future, raise your hands. Really? And how many are kind of discouraged about what's going on? That's interesting.
Well, if it keeps on like this, we're not going to have any future like the kids.
Mr. Speaker, we shall do 3 more things to advance the cause of federalism in the months ahead.
Those 3 things are: 1, reformers will convene a task force to, quote, flesh out a new vision of Canada. 2, talk about it in non-reform.
Some sunny breaks coming tomorrow, a few clouds, details coming up. I wish you hadn't called me right at this moment. Yo, ice cream bars, potato chips, here. Yo, ice cream.
Oh dear. Coming up after a break, international tensions are mounting as North Korea moves from defiance to threats. And can old-fashioned curfews cut down on modern teen crime? We'll visit one city that's trying to find out. Today, the North Korean government is still refusing to allow international inspectors into its nuclear stations despite the U.S. threat of sanctions. And according to South Korea's news agency, the North is now testing nuclear missiles which rival those of the U.S. It also claims the weapons are poised to be launched at any country that chooses to enforce sanctions.
It looked like a charm offensive by North Korea. Much of its top military leadership was in China today, begging for continued friendship and support from one of their last friends in the world.
There might be some good news in this if I conclude from that the North Koreans care what the outside world thinks.
But along with the charm came another barrage of tough words. In Vienna, another refusal by North Korea to allow international inspectors to take samples at 2 nuclear waste storage areas.
DPRK will never allow inspection
The U.S. had hoped that by getting access to the nuclear waste sites, inspectors could work like archaeologists, trying to piece together from what had been thrown away whether North Korea was building nuclear weapons. Also today, more threats of war from North Korea if the UN votes to impose economic sanctions. Secretary Christopher, with the president in Paris, said the U.S. will not back down.
I don't think we're going to be intimidated by the statements that are being made by North Korea. We've heard that kind of bellicose talk before, and what we want to do is to follow a steady path toward sanctions.
And if sanctions were to touch off a war, the Clinton administration seems to be saying better now than later, when North Korea may have a real nuclear arsenal.
Certainly it is not in our interest, South Korean interest, Japanese interest, anybody's interest that we could see for there to be a war. But we don't think we will avoid a war by ignoring what the North Koreans are doing.
The Pentagon and CIA have sharply intensified intelligence gathering. Everyone acknowledges the situation is dangerous. No one wants to be caught by surprise.
In other world news tonight, at least 100 people have died in Colombia in flooding and landslides triggered by an earthquake. 300 more are missing in the remains of a southwestern city that was completely destroyed by an avalanche. The youngest girl to ever pilot a plane from North America to Europe has completed her journey. 12-year-old Vicky Van Meter arrived in Scotland right on schedule. The grade 6er from Pennsylvania began her flight on Sunday. And a junior high school teacher in Ohio has been suspended without pay for teaching his students some decidedly modern Latin. The teacher claims when he was hired, he was urged to make Latin more interesting. But school officials say most of the phrases he was teaching went too far. Phrases like, your fly is open and you have a big piece of spinach on your front teeth. Among the countless suggestions put forward to combat the modern-day rise in youth crime is a throwback to a time when teens did not have free run of their community. There's mounting support in several quarters for a return of curfews, where teenagers need a good reason to be out past a certain hour. One of the handful of communities that have reinstituted curfews is the city of Colorado Springs. And while, as you might expect, some teens don't care for it, the police say it's working.
It is after 10 o'clock and the police are cruising for kids.
So you're on your way home, I take it?
For 2 years, police here have enforced a curfew for anyone under 18, and juvenile crimes, including violent ones, have declined.
The large congregations of youths which tend to breed assaults and bottle throwing and rock throwing and all kinds of incidents, the late night drinking, that's all down.
Enforcement is simple. When children are first picked up, they are given warnings and taken home. But repeat offenses land them in court.
Claim you were out after hours with no legitimate purpose here in Colorado Springs.
There they face.
Just ahead of a break, the latest reports out of London say British Bond will be actor Pierce Brosnan. It says Brosnan, who most recently co-starred in the Robin Williams movie Mrs. Doubtfire, will make 4 Bond movies. The paper says among the stars who turned the role down were Mel Gibson and Schindler's List star Liam Neeson. Brosnan will become the 6th James Bond. We'll be right back. Now to our weather color man at the Coliseum, Wayne Cox.
Boy, I wish you wouldn't sneak up on me like you did before, Deb. You know, Deb, we have a special offer here tonight at the Canuck game. The first Canuck to score a goal will receive the coveted BCTV ballpoint pen. That'll give him something to shoot for, you know what I'm saying? Let's look at our satellite photo. The crowd is screaming like mad in the background, so if it all erupts, you'll probably guess that somebody scored. There's our... Oh, wouldn't you know it? I think someone just scored. Unfortunately, I can't hear myself think, so I'll just carry on. Ridge of high pressure is building. You can see it off the coast there, giving the north coast some clearing. A ridge going to spread. Sunshine will be around tomorrow. We'll battle a few clouds tomorrow and Thursday, though, and then the sunshine for Friday and Saturday. As we look at our temperatures around BC, another system is moving into the north, bringing rain to the Charlottes by tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. There should be mixed conditions for the interior, too. We'll check the regional forecast in just a few minutes. Let's go across the country right now. You can't outshout 16,000 people. You cannot do it. St. John's is overcast today. Drizzle in Halifax, clouds in Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal. A few clouds in Thunder Bay and Winnipeg. Overcast in Regina, Saskatoon. Clouds in Edmonton. Rain in Calgary today. Clouds and showers in the interior. And rain in Prince George. For the color contour map, we'll link up all the like temperatures, 5-degree increments. You can see pockets of cool air across Canada, but look at how warm it is up in the north. We're getting a nice big hot spell up there and getting some very hot temperatures, especially in the Northwest Territories. Now, let's look at our cloud cover, see where the major systems are around North America, see where the clouds are hovering. And there you have it, sweeping right across Alberta, Saskatchewan, down in through North, South Dakota, and around the Great Lakes too. And still a lot of problems down in Florida. Let's light them up. There's the precipitation. You can see all around Florida and Georgia and a little bit north, up into the Carolinas too. We got some thunder shower activity. There are the temperatures around the rest of North America. Add to those, Acapulco 34, Honolulu 31, Mexico City 26, and Palm Springs 40 degrees in the sunshine in the desert. How we doing at the airport at Vancouver? 15 degrees. Wind out of the southwest, light wind. The barometer is holding steady at the moment. There's our precipitation today, 1.1 millimeter of precipitation. Now, let's go region by region, see how things are cooking. Whitehorse, Southern Lakes, sunny skies, highs to 20, low around 2, nice and warm in the north. Peace River, same for you, cloudy, few showers, high of 20, low of 10. Caribou Interior, mix of sun and cloud and showers, high of 16, low of 6. North Coast, sunny, becoming cloudy, showers, high of 17, low of 6. Thompson, Okanagan, sunny, cloudy period, showers, a high of 23 degrees, nice and warm, low of 9 degrees. Kootenays, cloudy with showers, a high of 19 and an overnight low of 9 degrees. And the lower mainland Vancouver Island, sunny with cloudy periods, highs to 20, lows to 9.
Doctors, police officers, and teachers were among the thousands of disgruntled workers who gathered to protest recent provincial cutbacks.
Savage! We want Savage! We want Savage!
More than 3,000 public sector workers gathered at the Nova Scotia legislature to tell Premier John Savage they're extremely unhappy with a wage rollback and the suspension of collective bargaining. Organizers say they're hoping similar demonstrations will convince the government to change its mind, but that's not likely. The legislation is expected to receive approval this week. There's now a second group vying to build a replica of the schooner Bluenose, which has been declared unseaworthy and too expensive to repair. The Nova Scotia government recently announced the formation of a foundation to build Bluenose 3, and today a private consortium began selling shares to raise funds to build a 44-meter vessel. The financial target in both cases is $10 million. Mohawk gas station owners went to court in Montreal today over the collection of sales taxes on the Ganawaki Reserve. The Quebec government has banned gasoline wholesalers from selling to 12 Mohawk dealers on 2 reserves. It says they owe almost $4 million in unpaid sales and gasoline taxes. The natives want a temporary injunction preventing the government from taking any punitive action until the full case is heard next month. A heavy rain warning has been issued for Edmonton and the entire southern Grande Prairie region. About 50 millimeters is expected to fall in Edmonton before the system moves through and tapers off tomorrow morning. However, some parts of Grande Prairie could receive as much as 100 millimeters by tomorrow night. The Geritol Gang rides again. A group of seniors who ride motorcycles around the world stopped in Calgary today. Based out of Victoria, they range in age from 62 to 82. Old enough, they say, to enjoy a hobby they were deprived of in their youth. For 15 years, they've been getting together for an annual trip. This one is of Western Canada. A UBC psychologist says bright lights may help victims of the binging and purging eating disorder, bulimia. For over a month, 17 testers were exposed to special lights from which UV rays were blocked. The results were dramatic. There was a 40% drop in their dangerous eating practices and a 55% drop in symptoms of depression. Despite these findings, researchers say more study needs to be done on the benefits of light therapy. We'll take a break now, and when we come back, Canadian artists fight for their piece of the royalties' pie. A starving artist sells one of his works for peanuts. Years later, it is resold for thousands, maybe even millions, but the artist is still starving. How? Unlike writers and musicians, when Canadian visual artists sell their work, they relinquish all claim to future royalties if the work is resold. Now, some artists have begun a campaign to change that.
Well, I pretty well work on themes, like the same way as Monet did a series of haystacks. Right now I'm doing a series of Richmond for this illustrated book I'm doing. So I feel in a series of drawings, at least we recorded one moment in time, and that's all I could do.
Raymond Chow has been selling his drawings and paintings for more than 30 years. He's one of the fortunate ones who can make a comfortable living from his art. But he says artists like himself should be making more money. He sells his works in his Vancouver gallery. In his
But again, I like to have seen that because my name was attached to it, and every time it was resold, it was generating monies, and yet at the same time there was no easement back for me.
1,800,000, 1,900,000.
In some European countries, not only do the auction houses get a commission from sales, but by law, the artists must also get a royalty from the resale.
All done at $43,500,000, fair warning.
In Germany, artists get a 5% royalty on resales. $9.25 million was collected last year. California has a similar law. In that state, $200,000 was collected for artists.
Bonjour, can I help you? Yes.
In Ottawa, some are lobbying the federal government for Canadian artists to have the same rights.
Art is different from a manufactured product in that art is both the object and also the copyright, the intellectual property. And even though the object changes hands, the intellectual property generally remains a property of the artist. The value is in the intellectual property as much as it's in the object.
But art dealers are adamantly opposed to any resale royalty.
I would oppose any legislation that is a further impediment for collectors to purchase art from artists in Canada.
But are you also concerned that for galleries it would just mean less money because they'd have to give a percentage to the artist?
Well, I'm sure it would be just like tax, where it goes on the top, and I'm much more concerned about collectors than I'm concerned about galleries.
It certainly hasn't depressed the art industry in Europe. It's healthier there than it is here, and it certainly hasn't in California.
Meanwhile, artist Raymond Chow is also taking up writing. He's writing to his MP a letter about appreciating art.
And now back to the Coliseum for sports. And John, they're up 2-0.
Yeah, they are, and it ain't the BC Lions. And they're just getting into the 9 seconds of the first period. The last minute, you hear CKNW broadcaster John Ashbridge is the PA announcer here. You're familiar with him hearing on the news in the morning, but the bottom line is you're right, 2-0 as Deb stole all the thunder. But then again, all the thunder's out there tonight, and we'll show you what happened in the first 19 minutes of this hockey game. This is the opening goal. Lume will take the pass from Jeff Brown. He'll fan on the shot. It'll go by McTavish, and then Linden doesn't get all of it either. And either way, it goes in the net for his 10th playoff goal. He hasn't scored in about 2 weeks. The replay will show you the shot from Lume. He doesn't get all of it. He sort of knuckleballs it. Linden doesn't get much of it either, but Greg Adams screens him. It's 1-0. That happened 13.5 minutes into the period. And then Pavel Bure dances around the defense. He doesn't get the goal, but he sets up Cliff Ronning as Richter was down, and Ronning goes high. His 5th playoff goal, and it's 2-0 for the Canucks. And some of the 16-150 that are here tonight are somewhat ecstatic, to put it mildly. 2-0, there it is, and you'd have to say this is ostensibly a must-win hockey game for Vancouver. I mean, the alternatives are either be down 3-1 going back to the Madison Square Garden, or being in a 2-2 tie and forcing at least a 6 game, which of course will be back here on Saturday night. Meanwhile, one of the Cinderella teams in the National Hockey League that past year, one of many actually, but one in particular, was the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. And I'm sure that even Walt Disney would appreciate so much for class. It's taken a break here during the first intermission, but notwithstanding that, we'll tell you that this is a kid who cut his junior teeth in New Westminster, and I think Disney and all New West would be proud of this guy.
He's a professional bully and proud of it. Todd Ewan has been called the Animal, Bam Bam, and a couple of other names, playing and fighting for the Montreal Canadiens. the St. Louis Blues, and now the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim.
Fight has broken out right in front of our vantage point, and before you could just about blink your eye, that man, Todd Ewan,